Last night was the end of an era. 33 years of David Letterman on television. 22 years of him doing the show that starts at 10:30 or 10:35 here in Chicago on CBS. And what a way to go out! It was. I thought as a piece of television for those kinds of things, there is very little that you can do right in those.
It's true. It's like you're trying to sum up 3 decades of work in one night.
Right. And also it tends to be it either gets too self-indulgent or it gets too schmaltzy or it gets too sad. And they were able to keep the because I think David Letterman is the second most talented guy ever to hold that position behind Johnny Carson. Is he was able to keep it on a different level. He was able to keep it on a funny level. He never let it get maudlin. He never let people. He was always the victim of his own jokes anyway. He never let it get too creepy or too self-indulgent for sure. I mean, they did play some interesting stuff. They did a thing. They did it behind the scenes, like a day in the life of David Letterman. I thought it was going to be funny, but it was actually a slice of life. It was a procedural little piece that shows him getting out of the. They drop him off in a Chevy Tahoe every morning. And I love that. I love that vehicle.
Something in common.
Yes, and they he goes up and he walks around, he runs around in his shorts and his workout clothes, and he runs between offices and they go through stuff, and it's what that actually looks like behind the scenes.
Is that the part where they introduced everyone to? Because I saw the clips this morning, but is that where they introduced you to all the staffers and everybody who worked on the show? Because at one point he did that last night too. Right?
Yeah, well, he did that at the end. He pointed out the band and all that sort of stuff. But this was really more of a behind the scenes, camera on him, watching him move around the space in the offices and how he prepares for a show. They get there fairly early in the morning, and they tape at 4 o'clock. I mean, it's about a 12-hour day by the time they're done. And a guy who's 68 years old, I mean, people think, well, what is it? They just walk out there. It's those 1-hour TV talk shows are an incredible amount of work.
It's a grind. And, if you love it, you love it. But it's still no way around it. And
they have to find a way to, come up with a comedy. He talked about the writers. He actually gave a really nice shout-out to the writers last night when he said that, he let them do their job, and he was always so proud to just be entertained by them and then bring their work to us. It wasn't really so much him. It was the writers. And you don't hear a lot of guys doing that. You hear a lot of guys taking credit for what their writers had provided and say, it wasn't I funny, and that was not David
It wasn't
Letterman
the tone. Yeah. And then the ratings were huge. They said the highest in 20 years. 14 million people tuned in.
And you can't get 14 million people anymore on a non-major sporting event or news event or national event of some sort.
When does that happen?
Right. So this was a pretty special thing. The 14 million people that watched last night, and I don't think anybody was really disappointed. They did. They had guests come out to do the top 10 list, top 10 things I wanted to say to Dave.
That part seemed very funny.
Yes, and it was Alec Baldwin. Eric Baldwin. Must be another Baldwin brother.
There are a whole bunch of them.
Yes,
There's too many to count.
Must be one. Alec Baldwin, Barbara Walters, Jim Carrey, Peyton Manning was there. And it's funny because Dave seemed he's starstruck by Peyton Manning.
Really?
Yes. And there was also Chris Rock, too, who had a very, very funny moment.
Number 5, Chris Rock. I'm just glad your show is being given to another white guy.
Yeah, the things they always wanted to say to Dave, and they all were equally. I mean, they were like outdoing each other.
There was Jerry Seinfeld, who got the largest applause when he came out.
Number 7, Jerry Seinfeld.
Dave, I have no idea what I'll do when you go off the air. I just thought of something. I'll be fine.
Thank you, Jerry.
So because Jerry Seinfeld was wearing a tuxedo.
He looked good.
And Dave Letterman turns to him and goes, hey, apparently Jerry has a benefit after the show tonight. Here's Bill Murray. This is the number 1.
Things I've always wanted to say to Dave. Number 1, Bill Murray, ladies and gentlemen.
Dave, I'll never have the money I owe you.
Oh, no.
And it was interesting because he went up And David Letterman went up to congratulate everybody, thank them, and the camera went down the line with him when he had a little personal moment with everybody. Do you have Julia Louis-Dreyfus? Because that's actually my favorite of them all. And I'm looking at our folks here. And he goes up to Bill Murray. He goes, "Hey, say on TV last night, you okay?" Because because Bill Murray was on with him last night, and then went on MSNBC a couple hours later and was so drunk he fell off a chair.
Yeah, and was slurring his speech. That Lawrence O'Donnell show. It was very strange.
Yes. And by the way, let's not judge a guy for slurring his speech in the middle of a broadcast. I think that's that seems,
I mean, on Fridays, that's kind of routine around here.
That's pretty standard, wouldn't you think?
I do.
And the other piece too is there were a couple moments where he like geared down. It was very nice about his family. He showed his wife and his son, his wife and son, and his son looked so unbelievably uncomfortable.
He looked awkward.
Like 11 years old or something like that.
So cute.
Yeah, and he's squirming in his chair, and then he had to bring his friend with him, and they kind of showed them. You could see what a young Dave must have been like that made him a comedian, because he was, awkward kids make great comedians.
Yeah, but it was such a cute, and it was such a sweet moment, really, thanking his wife, who you never really see, and the son, who just seemed like, stunned that he was on camera, like, uh-oh, Dad's putting me on camera.
Yeah, I don't want to be
Oh,
here.
Gosh, come on.
No, I don't like this.
No.
I got to go to the bathroom. I got to go. I don't want to be here.
It was so cute.
So Julia Louis-Dreyfus was also one of the people that was doing this, and she was like third or fourth in line, and Jerry Seinfeld had already gone, and Jerry Seinfeld's standing right there, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus says this.
Number 4, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, ladies.
Oh, that's her walkout.
Thanks for letting me take part in another hugely disappointing series finale.
And then they show Seinfeld. But you see, I mean, Seinfeld's a perfect example. The Friends finale is kind of a perfect example of this too, where the sitcoms, they try to go too far and they try to do too much. Carson, at the end of when he left the air, and that's the only thing that's really comparable here. He sat on a stool at the very end, right? And Bette Midler sang, "Wind Beneath My Wings" or whatever she sang to him, and it was. That was a nice moment because he was able to be, for the one time that Carson showed personal emotion. Well, there had been 2 times he'd shown personal emotion on the show. And they ran, and I thought this was fascinating, they ran a nice reel at the end. The Foo Fighters came out and sang a song that he said, and this is an amazing deal. He said that when he had his heart attack, or his heart, he was going for a heart test check, and that's when they found all this blockage, and they immediately rushed him into the to surgery, and he was off for 6 weeks. And he said during his recovery for that, the Foo Fighters meant so much to him as a band, and he would, that's what he was listening to for his recovery. And he had, a song that he wanted them to play. And he wanted them to be the first band back when he came back after 6 weeks off. And they were on tour in South America. And he said, and his producer said, well, we're not going to be able to get them. And then next thing you know, the Foo Fighters, he says, canceled their tour. And then came up and did that. And they were, forever. We have the full thing. Oh, here we go. Playing live, and then there was a montage of all the different people who worked there. Everlong is the song, and that's what it meant to. It just was great.
Did you see the George Clooney moment? That's the one moment I didn't really understand. Did he handcuff himself to Dave at some point, apparently, and said, "I'm not leaving until you're leaving," or "I can't believe you're leaving," or something like that?
Maybe in the intro role. He had the presidents.
Oh,
that was from a couple nights ago.
Oh, okay.
He had the presidents in the intro role, which was great.
That's awesome.
It started with Jerry Ford, his infamous line after the Watergate debacle and all of that. I mean, debacle's not the right word for it, but after Jerry Ford's debacle of pardoning Richard Nixon and said, this long national nightmare is over. And then the other presidents followed suit.
My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over.
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 Our long national nightmare is over. Letterman is retiring.
That was great.
You're just kidding, right?
Because Letterman was with President Obama, but that was George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and then Barack Obama.
What a wonderful thing.
It was great to have them do that.
And then today, did you see that they're throwing away the Letterman set, and all these people were like upset because they were just taking chainsaws to it, and they're throwing it in the dumpster, and all the red chairs, it's all going out.
Well, they have to go out.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they're going to use that. I'm not even sure that's been announced yet, if they're going to use that for Stephen Carell.
No.
But if they use the Ed Sullivan Theater, and they do have to, and let's face it, that's show business. And if you've been on a lot of television sets in your life.
I have.
There is nothing crappier than a television set. It is designed to look cool on television. And when you sit behind these desks, it's plywood. It's tattered looking, but it looks cooler on television because you don't get the real tight look at it. Now in HD, they've made it a little bit better, but not that much better.
Right. Whenever you lead tours and everyone's like, "Oh, that's it? That's what it looks like," because you're so used to what you see on TV.
I did a studio tour of NBC in Burbank as a kid.
Cool.
With a group of people, and they took us into the Carson theater, the Carson set, and they let us sit on the Carson on the couches.
What an experience!
And I want to tell you something. The couch, Carson had the main chair, and then he had a couch.
Right.
The couch is the most uncomfortable thing ever, and it was designed to be uncomfortable because people would sit straight up as opposed to sink into it.
Oh, right.
And he had a button behind his desk that would shoot cold air up the back because he actually had guests. I think it was George Gobel fell asleep on the couch, and they couldn't wake him up. So he had this air jet thing to wake people up out of the back because it was nothing but that was nothing but plywood with fabric over it to make it look like a couch.
Yeah, I mean, couches are also a problem for women when they sit down. If it's a little cushy, you get a little extra advanced look at stuff.
Something rather medical happens there. You might want to have that checked. I don't know.
Yeah. You don't want to.
Especially with Twitter now, people will actually make a suggestion about that.
Right,
so
will. They'll tell you.
That's how that goes. All right. Well, David Letterman obviously is an inspiration to generations of people who have gone on to be comedians and late-night talk show hosts. It's so funny because all the talk shows are like, oh, I wouldn't have gotten into this without you. Well, I mean, there's 5 of them. I mean, this isn't like, there aren't millions of talk shows. But he entertained 2 or 3 generations of people.
Absolutely. Long time.
Thoroughly. And is, it's just one of those, he's a special person. And it's funny that you see he's flawed, and that makes him even better, I think, in a lot of respects, because he acknowledges his own flaws and goofiness. But when you watched him last night, he makes awkward look great and gracious. And I think that was his greatest talent, and I think to an entire generation of people who grew up with him who felt a little out of place, he is which as a lot of people do, he was a perfect antidote to that feeling, thinking, okay, I feel a little awkward and itchy in this, well, look at this guy.
And you wonder if he's going to be one of those talk show hosts that will now just sort of disappear.
Like Carson.
Just sort of say, okay, I'm done. One of his final remarks was, in the end, family's all that matters, and maybe that's it.
Well, he will be gone, because I don't think when he takes time off, which he takes a lot of, or has in the last couple of years, he's never here. He's never in the United States. He either goes to St. Bart's where he's got a home, or he goes to Montana where no one can find him.
It's hard to find people in those places. You're right.
After it was over, we watched the September 11th night broadcast. That was all over the YouTube yesterday.
Yeah.
And Worldwide Pants, the company that owns Letterman, put it out, and it was really special. When you watch that, and I suggest people go and take a look at that.
I'd forgotten about that.
Because it was really, it's something that is just not, when you see it, and I remember it so specifically because, you worked through that, I worked through that, where you have to, we were on the air when it happened.
Yep, I was too.
And then on the air, every day thereafter, and continuously, and we never thought we would be funny again. We never thought we could actually do something entertaining.
You wondered when it was okay to be funny again, and what about?
Right. And he opened that up. He opened that up, and by doing that, it was for the nation, and it was an amazing moment. And he had a little swear in there that some people found offensive, but I think it was if you're ever going to use that expression, that was the most poignant and perfect way to use it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't want to cry now. I just want to move on.
Kind of runs down there at the end, bro.
It does. I'm sorry.